Today's podcast is sponsored by Lipton Tea. More on that later. Greetings, I am Lady Elizabeth Harrington II, and welcome to the History Podcast. Today we will be talking about the highlights and most interesting facts of ancient Egypt. Our journey will start in the Old Kingdom, then we will move onwards through history discussing the most important events. Feel free to sit back, relax, grab some tea, and enjoy. Before we get into the Old Kingdom, there is some important information and events that happened before it that I think we should mention. Around 3100 BCE, the king commonly known as King Menes unified Upper and Lower Egypt. Funnily enough, Upper Egypt was in the south and Lower Egypt was in the north. This had to do with the flow of the Nile River. Even if he did something great, King Menes, that is, his death was quite funny. It was said when Menes was 62 years of age, he was killed by a hippopotamus. Well, enough of that. On to the Old Kingdom. From 2700 BCE to 2200 BCE, Egypt was in the era of the Old Kingdom, or the Age of the Pyramids. The leaders in that time were in the Second Dynasty, believe it or not the First. The Second Dynasty was formed in 2890 BCE, a little before the Old Kingdom officially started. Well, nothing really exciting happened in its 204 years of its reign, nor did anything happen in the Third Dynasty. So, we move on to the Fourth Dynasty of Egypt. Now, the Fourth Dynasty ruled over Egypt from 2613 BCE to 2494 BCE. This was the Bronze Age in history. If you're going to think about ancient Egypt, you probably think about the Fourth Dynasty. It was known as the Golden Age of the Old Kingdom. The second ruler of the Fourth Dynasty was known as King Khufu. Khufu ruled for 23 years, and in that time he got a lot done. You most likely know him for building the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In fact, it took 20 years to build the pyramid. The Sphinx was also built in that time. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built for a tomb for Khufu, while the Sphinx was built to honor his son, Khafre. After Khufu, there were more pharaohs with unnecessary long and complicated names. So, on to the next. We are going to go on ahead and move to the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, which starts with the 11th dynasty. You may be asking, why so far ahead? Wouldn't it be at least the 5th or 6th? Well, in each kingdom of Egypt, there are things called intermediate periods. These periods were times when Egypt was not unified. However, dynasties still ruled. In this podcast, I am discussing the most important events when Egypt was unified. So, we will skip over these parts. If you want me to do a part on these intermediate periods, leave a comment and I might do it. So, the 11th dynasty. It was pretty boring, but don't worry, it gets better. The 13th dynasty was known as the era of chaos. But enough fanfare. The period may have been more peaceful than it was said to be. The capital has a long and complicated name that I'm not even going to try pronounce. Luckily, it was changed to Thebes. From that point onward, 13th dynasty rulers were only born from Upper Egypt, where Thebes was located. The Middle Kingdom was short, only lasting 400 years compared to the Old Kingdom with 500 years. So this already brings us to the second intermediate period of Egypt. So let's dive into the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom, more specifically the 18th dynasty, will be fun because it is filled with celebrity cameos. Well, for their time, I mean. However, before we get into that, we have a word from our sponsor, Lipton Tea. Lipton Tea only uses 100% natural tea grown from the cleanest farms with no pesticides since 1880. Go to www.lipton-history.com for 30% off and free shipping on your first order, or text history to 555-555. That's www.lipton-history.com or text history to 555-555 for 30% off. Now, back to the podcast. The 18th dynasty was in control from 1550 BCE to 1292 BCE. It was founded by Ahmose I, the brother or son, probably both if we know ancient Egypt, of Kamose, the last ruler of the 17th dynasty. The latter half of the 18th dynasty will be our focus for now. Think of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, not by name, just a face. Good. You are probably thinking about Tutankhamun, better known as King Tut. From his birth in 1334 BCE to his death in 1325 BCE, King Tut had a pretty short life, only 18 years long. There is much speculation on how he died, like he was murdered. Tut had it rough. He took control of Egypt when he was only 9 years old. As well as that, Egypt was in total ruin. Akhenaten was the ruler that came before Tut. He changed the religion to monotheism, or the worship of one god. People did not like this, and it was up to Tut to fix it. When Tut died, the next two rulers spent their time trying to erase Tut from history. Were they the one who's killed him? Either way, they failed, and now Tutankhamun is one of the most famous pharaohs of Egypt. The 19th dynasty reigned from 1292 BCE to 1189 BCE. Now, something I forgot to mention earlier. Starting around 1539 BCE, pyramids were stopped being built for pharaohs. Instead, they were buried in the Valley of the Kings. The pyramid is a symbol of the sun god Ra. That's why most pharaohs were buried in them. Now, they choose the Valley of the Kings because the mountain on top of it looks like a pyramid. If anything, it is closer to Ra than a man-made pyramid. Ramses II, or Ramses the Great, was the third ruler of the 19th dynasty, and in his second year of running Egypt, he defeated the Shurdan pirates. Let me repeat myself. Pirates! Who knew pirates were attacking Egypt? That's not really important, I just wanted to mention it. After Ramses II, some rulers included Seti II and Turset. The 20th dynasty lasted from 1189 BCE to 1077 BCE. We did it. We have now entered the Iron Age in history. I like to call the 20th dynasty the era of the Ramses. Would you like to know why? Because all but one of the 20th dynasty's pharaohs are a Ramses, starting from Ramses III to all the way to Ramses XI. I mean, I like the sound of my own name, and I was named after my grandmother, but this is just extensive. The 21st dynasty starts the third intermediate period, so we will move on to the 28th dynasty. The 28th dynasty was probably one of the shortest, with only one pharaoh. We are reaching the end of our journey through Egypt, and you may ask, what about Cleopatra? Well, she ruled the Ptolemaic dynasty. This was founded in 305 BCE, way after the last official dynasty ended. Did you know Julius Caesar and Cleopatra had a child together? She was the one who brought Egypt down from its mighty past. From then, the Romans ruled Egypt until modern times. That brings us to the end of our podcast. I hope you enjoyed learning something today. Next time, we will continue our journey through Egypt and dive further into the Old Kingdom even more. Until next time, goodbye.